Good morning. Thank you everybody for making this session. I'm a passionate energy efficiency and renewable energy practitioner and specialist. And I love talking about energy efficiency, but particularly this topic. And I'm about to hopefully get you to start thinking about why your organization hasn't considered being ISO 50001 certified. If you haven't, if you're thinking about it, I'm here to give you a way to hold your hand somewhat, because it's going to be a long road, but we're here to assist. And I'm going to share with you some of the short case studies, but you will also note that I didn't go out of my way to include the step-by-step case studies. But if you go to our website, ncpc.co.za, then you can download the shorter version, which are the 2 pages, and of course the longer version of the case studies for individual companies, specifically talking about every intervention we've had. And also you can just specifically decide you want the ISO 50001 case studies. So, my name is Faith, and what qualifies me to speak about this is because I'm a member of the ISO Technical Committee 301, which means I sit with other experts at the South African Bureau of Standards and look at the standards that are applicable, that will benefit South Africa or industry in South Africa as well. So, the first thing that I want to introduce to you is the project itself. Some of you may not be familiar with the OEE Project, and there are different or various entities that make it possible through funding, through other support as well. And in that case, we are hosted by the CSIR, and of course supported by the DTI and funded by the Global Environmental Facility through UNIDO. And of course, we also get support from SECO, the Sea Secretariat for Economic Development. So our intervention is not just saying, I want to be ISO 50001 and then voila, we'll make it happen in your absence and you don't have to be involved. You actually do the work, but we make it easy in that we support you fully, we train you, we make sure that we come and support you technically. But also, we do all of those things. We will help you with technical evaluations of your site. If you need any energy systems optimizations, we'll come and do that. And then we will train you or some of the representatives from your company on the subject of energy management systems, Energy Management 101, and energy management performance indicators. But the last step, we also get you ready for that. Unfortunately, that we do not do. So that is a disclaimer. We are not a certification body. So we don't come and certify the companies ourselves, but we will help you to make sure that you are ready for certification. So in other words, everything that has to be in place for you to be certified, we'll make sure that it's there. So I bring a set of fresh eyes. You sit in your plant, you see all the things that are working. I walk in and I see all the mistakes, or the things that are lacking, rather. So that is the benefit of having me or any of my colleagues or our consultants come to your side and assist. And of course, we don't just come the day before. We start with you. So when you enroll for the first Energy Management 101, we are there. That's a day course, and then 2-day, and all the way to expert level training. And we've got various ways of doing it. And of course, every company is unique, the challenges will be unique, and that's what we tackle when we are there with you. So the whole point of looking at ISO 50001 is that we already know and understand the challenges. Some of them could be staff turnover, but the fact that you also want to be certified for other ISO standards like 14001 or the quality management standard 9001. So if you want to do that, ISO 50001 is flexible enough to work with the rest of the ISO 50000, the ISO standards. So. This was just to show you why I was talking about with regards to TC301. So every country is represented in the body of ISO through these technical committees. And in my case, I sit on the TC301, which is the energy management standard. So we look at a suite of standards that support energy management. It's not just one standard, but of course, the main one is ISO 50001. And I'll show you the rest of the standards. So South Africa, as you can see, is a participating country or a member of the ISO body. And the one thing I wanted to highlight is that this is done in conjunction with SAB. So we don't directly contact ISO, we do it through SABs. But the most important thing is because as NCPC, we are not industry, but we're not government. And we're also not a certification body, like I said, so we're not SABs. But we feel we are the ideal institution to go to industry and create a conducive environment for a new standard, for a new regulation, for new policy. So that's why when we say we advocate policy, that's what we're talking about. And similarly to standards, if they are complicated, we unpack them, and then we go to industry and show you how to implement them. And once we're done with that, we compile case studies to show you that it works. I mean, we can't say it works and we have no results for it. So those case studies that you will see when you go to our website, it's because we show you that it works and how much it has worked for South African organizations. Because we believe that standards is that oil that lubricates the machinery of our economic growth and also facilitate international trade. You want to be global players. We live in a global village. So you cannot do things in isolation when the rest of the world is turning to the left. We've got to turn to the left as well with them. But also these will give us a competitive advantage. Now we're talking the same language as the rest of the world. Of course, there are things like the other challenges that they're not aware that we're faced with, and we don't know some of the challenges that other organizations in other parts of the world are faced with. So that's what we deal with as at SABS. So, like I said, ISO 50001 is the main standard, but then there are other standards that support this. So for you sitting in the organization, the rest of the standards may not support you, but trust me, they've worked for you in some way, because when we send somebody to help you with an energy audit, for example, they follow a particular standard. When we send somebody to come and do your M&V, they follow a particular standard as well. So all these other standards that support the main standard, which is ISO 50001. And you can see most of them start with the 50. The 50,000 is simply because they are the same family of standards that really help to maintain and uphold the main standard, which is ISO 50001. And later on, I'm going to talk about some of these standards and the context. So these are just some of the standards that are currently in development. At a given moment, we are working on more than one standard. So South Africa is raising their hand. South Africa is raising concerns and voicing their views and the problems that industry is facing with implementing some of these standards. And we try and incorporate them, sometimes even changing the standard so that it can work for us as South Africa or South African industry. So in some way or the other, like I said, you may have been involved with, if you're thinking about ISO 50001, or you've just implemented energy management systems, which you will do as per ISO 50001, then the rest of the standards that support 50001 has worked for you in some way or the other, without you voluntarily or feeling like you are doing it. So why would an organization want to worry about ISO 50001? I mean, certification on its own brings about this negative connotation about it. It's a lot of work, they require too many things, but do I really need to comply in order to make a profit? And we agree, businesses don't exist to save energy. Businesses exist to make profit, to better our economy. But now, I think between today and between this morning and yesterday, you will understand that there is no way in any country at the moment that you will consider economic benefits without considering sustainability. And energy efficiency, or energy in general, is a big driver of economy. So if you say you are only focusing on the economic benefits, but you're not going to focus on the energy efficiency side of things, you're probably fooling yourself, because you cannot focus on that in isolation. We all have to get to a point where we're interested in sustainability. All the presentations and the breakaway sessions speak to that. Yesterday I was in the green chemistry session. It does speak to sustainability. So this is just one of the ways that will make sure that you make your contribution in sustainability as an organization as well. But also, the one thing that's embedded in ISO 50001 is the continual improvement. What we're saying is that it's not enough to save energy today or to do good today. It's got to be a sustainable thing. You've got to have a future perspective. So when you become ISO 50001 today, it is not for life. Energy management systems and ISO 50001 is a performance standard. So it is based on your performance, how much energy you are saving in your company. So the minute you stop improving, the minute you stop being sustainable, you will lose your certification. So there's a process for recertification throughout the value chain of your processes and your product and your manufacturing. So it also consistent with the rest of the ISO 50001 standard. In fact, if you look at the relationship between 14001 and 50001, you will see that 50001 is a performance extension of energy within the environmental aspects that are embedded in 14001. But of course, we can always translate this. Engineers, technical people in the plant, they translate this in kilowatt hours, in gigajoules. You you can always translate this into rands and cent, and of course CO2 emissions, so whatever works for you. But also, for most companies these days, because suppliers or OEMs also demand that if you want to continue be one of our suppliers, you have to become ISO 50001 certified. That means it gives you a competitive edge somewhat. So if you don't know what's happening in Germany and your competition is a company based in Germany, the very least you know that they are going for ISO 50001 certified or they're already certified. So at least you can do that as well and get on the bandwagon. So now, recently in August 2018, we've had a revision and a finalization of the previous ISO 50001 standard, which is the current one for South Africa. And the reason I'm saying is the current one is because we haven't fully adopted it. The process is nearly done for SEBS to formally adopt the current standard, ISO 50001 2018. When I spoke to the chairperson, she promised me that we will have the standard ready by October. But that doesn't mean that we cannot continue to certify. We continue to certify as per ISO 50001 2011, and then there'll be a migration stage where you'll just migrate to the 2018 version, just like we did, those of you who are familiar with 14,000 in 14,000. So the nice thing is that for 2011, we had this thing, and I thought it was fantastic when I first saw it. I thought, wow, you have to create a balance between the technical aspect and the managerial aspect. So that means top management is involved throughout, but 2018 made it even better. They said, you know what, it's not enough that top management is somewhat involved. They have to be in the center and the middle of this thing. It's about top management, it's about leadership. And of course, we changed the term top management because, as you know, the ISO standards get translated into over 26 languages. So direct translation for top management in other countries were just not acceptable, so we call it leadership now. But it actually covers the same thing. So you can see now that leadership is right in the middle, whereas here, it was an aspect that we had to balance. So we do what we do and go to top management. We do what we do and then report to top management. We do what we do and then ask top management for support or resources. It doesn't work like that anymore. Now we have top management being in the center of it all. And of course, you've got your planning, you've got your support, operation, performance, and improvement. And that speaks to those continual improvement that I mentioned earlier. And of course, this I took right out of the standard. It still considers both energy performance and management systems approach to manage our energy. The standard addresses explicitly. And for me, I said hallelujah when I saw this, because in our training on energy management system, we've always been talking about this, but it was not very explicit in the standard. So now you have to look at energy performance indicators. You cannot manage what you don't know. So you have to keep your data, and then you'll always have a way of sussing out if you're improving or if it's declining. And this will be aligned with each one of your significant energy users in the plant. And of course, energy baseline. So measurement and verification guys will be very happy with this, because now it forces you to establish a baseline right from the beginning. You draw a line in the sand and say, this is where I started, so if somebody has to come and measure my improvement, this is where they're gonna start as well. So there's no going back and forth as and when it suits the individual. So that's the beautiful thing about this. But of course, now, sorry about that. So now we've got all of this, the policy. Once you've put together your policy, your objectives, your energy efficient design, it speaks to the different aspects about performance. So the main reason why you have to put this in place is not just so you can get started, it's so that you can be sustainable once you become ISO 50001 certified. So some of the terms and benefits, and I'm going to run very quickly on this because I wanted to show you that everybody, regardless of the size of the company, regardless of the industry, you can benefit from being ISO 50001. So you can go for ISO 50001 certification. And I'm also giving a global perspective as well as a South African perspective, which I'll tell a story in the end. So obviously, the adoption for ISO 50001 was one of the fastest. If you look at the history of all the standards, it makes sense to me. I don't know if it makes sense to you, but I'm hoping that this presentation will help you to make sense of it. But I'm also leaving some of the question marks so you can call me later on so we can discuss this. Trust me, I will not come out of your plan without convincing you that this is the way to go. So we'll also look at ISO 50001 being a culture of efficiency. More than anything, you need a culture of efficiency in South Africa right now, be it water, energy, resources. Every resource that you have, remember there's an aspect of scarcity there. So we cannot afford not to be efficient. So ISO 50001 also looks at that. Like I said, it's a performance standard, but it's also flexible to work with the rest of your standards that you may want to be certified for or you already have certifications for in your organizations. But ultimately, if you are improving and if you are doing well, you don't need to have a wait for the certification bodies to come and give you do a certification in your plan. You will see the improvement. You will be lowering those kilowatt hours, but also you'll be saving your money. You'll see it on your energy bills as well. So if there's an improvement, it's almost immediate. You will be able to pick it up. Like I said, it's the fastest growing standard. The first 12 months were amazing because some of the companies that we weren't even thinking of were able to adopt this. Of course, not South Africa. I mean, we're talking about the likes of Germany, or Spain, or Denmark. And the reason for that is because they had already a similar standard that was a regional standard that we didn't have to concern ourselves about called EN 16000. So that worked to their advantage because it was very similar to 50001, and it gave special attention to energy. So the trend in South Africa, the uptake is generally great for multinational companies that have headquarters in Europe. So if your head office is in Europe, case in point, think of your VW, your BMW as well. They said, when they came to us, they said, we want to be certified because head office says we have to be certified. So the pressure comes from above. Also, the OEMs, like I said earlier, they will say, you know what, all our suppliers, we're giving you 4 years time. In 4 years' time, you have to be ISO 50001 certified. Or you've got to show us that at the very least, you are implementing energy management system. So that's one of the drivers. I'm disappointed and proud at the same time. Proud because I understand that it's not easy, and most of these companies we've worked with. But also disappointed because I know South Africa can do better. We can actually have more companies certified. So far, in my register, and it doesn't exist anywhere, we have 31 companies in South Africa that have been ISO 50001 certified. There's also the back and forth because they have to be recertified, otherwise you lose the certification. So if you don't go for recertification, we don't count you in. While you're working on it, maybe in 3 months' time, you'll be certified. In that 3-month period, you are not certified. So there's that bit of going back and forth as well. And out of those 31, we've worked, NCPC, the OEE Project, we've worked with the 24 sites. Different methodologies of work, and I will tell you stories about how we do it. And 96% of those are already familiar with ISO standards, or they've already implemented one of the ISO standards, either 9000 or 14001. But the message is we need to get companies certified as soon as possible. Right now, there isn't a direct support in terms of incentive to support ISO 50001, so you pay for yourself. NCPC, we pay for everything else, but we do not cover your certification fee, unfortunately. And in terms of energy management system, we get more companies coming to say, we want to save energy. We're going to implement energy systems optimizations. We're going to implement energy management systems, but we're not going to be going for certification, not yet anyway. So out of those, only 11% go through to be ISO 50001 certified. So these are just some of the numbers. ISO takes a while to give the stats. So I felt in the absence of the fresh stats, this is what we have. And this just speaks only on ISO 50001 in terms of the uptake. So it's one of those standards that everybody went for. So the aspect of being a performance standard about ISO 50000 has really worked for companies. And as you can see, these are the top 10 countries that have become ISO 50001 certified. It is also heartwarming to see that India and China, having some of the biggest industrial sectors in the world, have gone for certifications as well. And of course, we don't feature in that. It is my dream, and I hope I'm planting a dream in your hearts too. So the whole point of doing all of this, why even bother with these standards? The aim is to just make sure, and according to our ISO, they're saying if we, as industry, as buildings, as any sector, as South Africa, go for ISO 50001 and remain sustainable and become recertified time and time again, by 2030, we will have ensured access to affordable and reliable energy. So ISO 50001 is one of the solutions to that sustainability thing I spoke about when I introduced my topic. So let's look at early international adopters, and some of them you already know that, and some of them will surprise you. So in terms of electronic manufacturers, we have ABB that said, we will look into it. And you know Siemens is very big on energy efficiency and renewable energy as well. We've got the pharmaceuticals represented by Pfizer. As soon as the standard was out, they were ready for certification. And we've got airports. In South Africa, we've got King Shaka Airport that has been ISO 50001 certified. And of course, we've got Delhi International Airport, one of the busiest airports in the world. Food and manufacturing, we have Lint. In South Africa, we've got Mondelez that implemented energy management systems but did not go for certification. So we know that they actually applying the same principles. We've got Hilton Worldwide, so this was a group certification, so all the resorts have been ISO 50001 certified, and they continue to be certified as well. Now, we've got tire companies as well, and the US of A were very slow because for their own reason. If it doesn't come from them, then they have to interrogate it and faff around it until they're happy about it. But of course, in the ISO committee, some of my colleagues are from the US. So finally, in 2012, we're able to get Nissan to open the doors for most of the American companies and become ISO 50001 certified. And of course, we've got Lamborghini in Italy. Well, they tell me their cars are not very fuel efficient. I don't know about that, but I know that their processes are very efficient, so much so that they become ISO 50001 certified. So coming home, I have put together a list of companies, and these are the companies that we've worked with. You may know a company that's ISO 50001, and if you don't say it here, it's because we didn't work with them, but doesn't mean that they're not certified. So they're certified, but we didn't work with them. So these are just some of the companies that we've worked with. Some of them are multi-site. So we may find a company in Gauteng, maybe two in Durban or in KZN, and another one in the Western Cape. So this is the list of the companies that we've worked with. I have a quick case study which I took a snapshot of. This is also one of those interesting stories, but it's also a Gauteng-based site. They were not one of the first companies to be certified, but I spoke to their GM, their former GM now, and he said, you know what, Faith, I've always believed in this, and I never understood why we're not having something like this. I want to be certified, and I want to be one of the first one in the Zimco group. And within 6 months, the guys were training, the guys were hard at work, and I was going up and down like a headless chicken, but within 6 months, they were able to get their certification. So, the long and short of it is that we know there are challenges to implementing ISO 50001. Most of the challenges are related to support, the technical know-how, the skills, staff turnover. Companies are skeptical. They don't want to send people for training because once you are trained up, you are better qualified to leave and get a better job with a better salaries. So they're scared of that, and we understand that. But we've designed energy management systems as per ISO 50001 to address those challenges. And we, as the OEE project, will support you right from the beginning where you say, I don't know what I'm talking about. All I know is that top management said, I will be certified, so I don't have a choice. We will take you through the whole thing. We will train you, we will train your teammates, we will train everybody, and we'll make sure that the kind of training that we do there, you will be able to replicate it if you've got more than one site. But also, we understand that you're still running around trying to get your 9001 or your 14001. Fair enough. We will make sure that ISO 50001 does not interfere with those plans of yours. We also want to make sure that to adopt this, it shouldn't be a cumbersome thing where you stop everything else. But it also doesn't give you an excuse to stop focusing on the other important things, your safety, for example. So ISO 50001 is not there to say, stop everything else and focus on this. So when you're running business, you will include this. So this is going to be your new way of running your business. You can't be running business as usual if you want to be one of the most sustainable companies. So the other problem that we picked up is that if you look at our case studies, most of them are large, medium to large organizations. SMEs are still facing a mountain of a challenge. And there could be a whole host of reasons, but one of them is because CEOs of SMEs are also engineers, they're also marketing managers, they're also the technical guys, they also change the light bulbs. The guy just doesn't have enough time to go around. They're usually very short-staffed, but also the biggest challenge is simply because they feel it's good enough for us to save energy. We cannot go a step further and pay money so that we can be certified. So what you think is minimal cost to you could be a lot for an SME. But we have a solution for it. In one of those standards that I said they are upcoming, we have 50,009. And that will address the multiple organizations. So if you've got teeny tiny companies, they can come together and have one certification. This is not a standard on its own. It's merely a guidance document. So ISO hasn't finalized this, and obviously SEBS has not adopted it. So as soon as science has adopted it, you'll be able to get your hands on this and get together with your fellow SMMEs or your SMEs, and then you can have your group certification. It is possible, and I was one of the biggest advocates for this as well. So the legacy, my presentation spoke, I said it's so ISO 50001, 2018 and beyond. And the legacy, more than anything, is a story about companies that will help. I can tell so many stories, but I prefer that you go look at the case study. So I will tell you a quick story of this company, First National Battery. So I can call them FNB, but I don't want to confuse a lot of you. We're not talking about the bank. So this company, I think it was last year when David Botha, actually my colleague called first, Inga. He said, I have 4 companies that want to be ISO 50001 certified, as in yesterday, but they haven't done anything. I said, okay, where are they? He said, they're in the Eastern Cape, there's one in Gauteng. I said, okay, fine, I'll run the Gauteng one, and you can help the Eastern Cape ones. And he felt, to make this process faster and easier for the company, we'll contract some of our great experts. And we contacted Davi Fourie for the 3 Eastern Cape sites. And I said, I'm not going to contract anybody for Gauteng. I'll do it myself. And this gentleman was not so worried. But of course, he was thinking, why are they getting something else and I'm getting something else? And we spoke on the emails. He said, I want you to commit to this on the email. And I said, well, I want you to achieve 2 things. We can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So once we are done, you will be ISO 50001 certified, but you will be an energy management systems expert. And I will personally help you. That's why I didn't contract anybody, and I'm not going to. He was worried, and as we finalized it, and he came through for the training, and he said, can I see you when I'm there for training? I said, I'll come and see you. And during that week when I was sitting in my office, he didn't wait for me to go see him. He walked into my office, and the minute he took one look at me, that worry just became more apparent in his face. I was heavily pregnant. And he thought, how are you going to help me? I said, well, number 1, I do train experts, but also I'm an EnMS expert myself, so I will personally help you to do this in the shortest time, and you will be the fastest in your group in class. And he said, has this ever been done? I said, not in this way, but this I've done before. But he wasn't convinced, and then he said, can you still type this in an email and commit to it? And I did that. And of course, he had more questions, and he copied everyone. And he called Inga, and Inga called me, and I said, I will do this. Fast track the long story. He attends the training. The following week, I'm there. And I can slowly see that I'm putting his mind at ease. We start doing the training. Almost immediately, we start doing the training for the guys on the floor. We start doing training for top management. We start doing training for the engineers. And I'm having all these meetings and these trainings, and I'm getting a lot of help from some of our experts. And we're doing this. And I said, if you're not sure that this is going to work, I have somebody that you can speak to. And that is the people from Zimalco, this case study that I showed you. And he spoke to them, and they said, actually, even better, you can come through if you want to see what we've been able to achieve. And that happened, and I said, the last thing I'm going to do before I go on maternity leave, I knew when I was going to give birth, and I said, the last thing I'm going to do is make sure that you are ready for ISO 50001. Now your people are trained up, you've got your significant energy users, you've got good plans, you've got your energy policy, you know what you're doing, but the last thing I do, I will go through that and give you sort of what I call a mock audit. So I'll audit you as though I'm the lead auditor, just to make sure that everything is in place. And we did that, and that was the last plant I visited just before I gave birth. And when I was on maternity leave, he called to say, not only did I pass stage 1 of ISO 50001 certificate, auditor certification, I've also already scheduled the stage 2, so it's going to happen this year, this November. And they did that, and they got their certification, all 4 sites. So the 3 in the Eastern Cape and the 1 in Gauteng. What I'm saying is that there are different ways. You may feel, I went to that side, or I looked at that case study, and I'm happy with what they did. I want exactly that. It may not happen exactly like that, but it will happen, and we will make sure that you become ISO 50001 certified. And these are just some of our legacy stories. And if need be, we will make sure that we have resources, we'll assign resources for you, and we will personally, all of us come there to make sure that we assist you to become energy management, to implement energy management system, but also to become ISO 50001. So if you have any questions, you will get our details, but there's also my email address and my telephone number. Thank you.